Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the incredibly turbulent state of the UK's political landscape following the May 7th elections. We are going to specifically zero in on the treatment of British Muslim voters. It's a fascinating look at representation, political rhetoric, and what shifting civic participation actually means for the future of modern democracies. Let's get right into it. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the May election turmoil, explore these narratives of suspicion, look at the shifting Overton window, move beyond the monolith, and then wrap it all up with the power of participation. Section 1. The May election turmoil, Labour's crisis, and the May 7th catalyst. Okay, so right after the local and devolved elections on May 7th, the UK political scene was basically thrown into absolute chaos. The Labour government found itself totally consumed by an open leadership crisis. Think about this. Over 90 of the Prime Minister's own MPs were demanding his resignation. Westminster was completely captivated by the drama. But, focusing entirely on that Westminster bubble means missing a massive, massive shift that was happening right at the grassroots level. For British Muslim communities, the real story of those May elections wasn't the Parliament drama at all. It was this huge, unprecedented surge in local civic participation. You had initiatives like the Muslim Council of Britain's Get Out the Vote campaign driving serious momentum. People were getting registered, they were showing up at the polls, and they were actively making their voices heard. It's your classic, inspiring story of grassroots mobilization, right? Well, the political establishment didn't exactly roll out the welcome mat. Section 2. Narratives of suspicion, misinformation, and media framing. Which brings us to an absolutely crucial question. How was this massive voter surge actually received? In a healthy democracy, you'd think increased turnout would be a reason to celebrate. But the reaction here was pretty much the exact opposite. Sadly, a lot of this engagement was met with immediate suspicion. The source text points out that political actors and media outlets leaned heavily into these lazy, divisive narratives. So instead of engaging with what these voters actually cared about, this highly visible Muslim participation was cast in a really suspicious light, relying on outdated tropes rather than any kind of genuine political analysis. One of the big narratives that commentators kept pushing was this idea of sectarian voting, basically portraying Muslims as one giant monolithic bloc who only vote based on their religion. It completely ignores the massive diversity of thought within the community. They also leaned into this family voting trope, the idea that Muslim women, specifically, are just told how to vote by their families. Actually, scratch that. It's worse than just oversimplifying. It actively strips away their independence and agency as voters, purely to delegitimize the results in areas with high Muslim turnout. Section 3. The shifting Overton window. The normalization of extreme rhetoric. We are watching the UK's political landscape literally fracture. The century-old dominance of the Labour and Conservative parties, it is cracking. In England, the main parties are losing ground while Reform UK has made serious local gains. Over in Wales, Plaid Cymru emerged as the largest party for the very first time, with Reform finishing a really strong second. And up in Scotland, the SNP is still the largest, but bleeding seats, while the Greens had their best result ever, and Reform won its first seats there too. Voters across the whole UK are incredibly fluid right now, just reaching for entirely different alternatives. Now, to really grasp why this fracturing has the author so concerned, we need to talk about the Overton window. If you haven't heard of it, it's basically the boundary of what's considered politically acceptable to the mainstream public at any given time. And the core anxiety here isn't just about one specific party winning, it's about how insanely fast this window is shifting right now. Ideas that used to be totally confined to the extreme fringe are suddenly walking right through the front door into the mainstream. And the text gives us some really stark evidence of this shift, showing how anti-Muslim rhetoric is becoming alarmingly normalized. Take Phil Tierney, who was just elected for Chelmsley Wood in Solihull. During his campaign, he literally posted, "I am Islamophobic," on social media. He called Islam a plague and shared material arguing that no Muslim should hold public office. This isn't fringe anonymous posting anymore. This is highly visible rhetoric from elected officials. And the normalization goes even further. The source points to Ben Rowe, another elected official down in Plymouth. During the 2024 Southport riots, he was reported to have literally urged a mob to get rid of that filthy building while they were throwing bricks at police who were protecting a mosque. The argument here is that while this might not be official policy for the major parties, actions like this are increasingly met with silence instead of condemnation. And when the fringe moves, the mainstream feels the pressure to move right along with it. Section 4. Beyond the monolith. What actually drives Muslim voters? So if all those media narratives are inaccurate, what actually drives these voters? Well, the myth of the homogenous Muslim voter falls apart the second you look at reality. Instead of being these robotic sectarian blocks, Muslims vote based on the exact same everyday realities as everyone else. We're talking housing, the crushing cost of living, education, neighborhood safety, and yes, international crises like Gaza absolutely matter, but they care about those alongside neighbors of all different faiths. The big takeaway here is simple. Representation has to be earned. If traditional parties just dismiss them, these voters are going to look elsewhere. Just to ground this in a real success story from the text, let's look at Mansour Ahmed. He ran as an independent and became one of the youngest councilors ever elected, representing a super diverse ward in Birmingham. And guess what? He didn't run on divisive national identity politics. He won on a hyper-local, community-focused platform. He talked about housing, local services, and creating stuff for the youth to do. It just proves there is a massive appetite out there for unifying, constructive change based on shared everyday problems.
Section 5. The Power of Participation. Preparing for the 2029 election.
All right, so all of this is building toward a massive looming deadline. Think about how fast things move from that local election surge in May 2024 to the deeply concerning rhetoric of the summer riots. Things move fast, but nothing is set in stone yet. The UK's electoral system makes it tough for fringe parties to grab national power, and traditional parties could definitely still pivot. But the clock is ticking. The next Westminster general election has to happen by August 15th, 2029. Political momentum shifts like wildfire, and communities simply can't afford to just sit back. So, how do you counter a shifting Overton window? The text lays out a really clear, actionable game plan for building civic literacy. First off, get everyone registered, especially the youth and first-time voters. Second, make sure people actually understand what each party is bringing to the table. Third, you've got to actively challenge misinformation, whether it's popping up in a family WhatsApp group or on the front page of a national paper. And finally, work side by side with neighbors of all faiths on the local issues you all share. At the end of the day, democratic participation isn't a culture war, it's a civic duty. It's how communities make sure they aren't spoken over. We've covered a lot today. The political chaos, the media suspicion, the shifting rhetoric, and the ultimate call to action. Which leaves us with one incredibly important question to chew on. As that August 2029 election gets closer every single day, will the UK's political parties actually step up and adapt to earn this highly engaged, diverse vote? Or will they just let the culture wars define the future of the democratic space? It is a tension that is absolutely going to shape the next chapter of UK politics. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and as always, keep questioning the narratives around you.